I don't need a cutting board or anything to break this up. I like to just use my hands. It's very easy. You can see the difference in the texture if you know the texture of unfrozen. This is a lot more porous. And it tends to soak up more flavor even after it's been cooked. So that's the whole point of this. And I just kind of break it up into uneven chunks. And I'm not gonna say like chicken because, as I said, I don't think tofu tastes anything like chicken. But it kind of gives it a resemblance. You know, you can make, you know, popcorn tofu like this by dredging it and frying it. You can do, you know, make wraps out of it, whatever the case is. And you don't have to worry about what they look like. They don't have to be perfect squares. And I just like the way that this gives a little bit of different texture depending on how thick the part of the tofu is. So, you know, the thinner parts on this one are going to be a little crisper, and this will be a little chewier and softer. So I kind of enjoy that. But I assure you, none of it's going to be soft and chewy and mushy like the typical tofu that you're served at the restaurant is. So once that is all done, season it up a little before you put it in the oven. And I forgot to mention before I do this, I preheat the oven to 350. This is going to go in for a total of an hour because we're gonna cook the heck out of it. We're gonna kick its butt with cooking. This stuff is going to be crunchy until you use it in the recipes after, and I'll explain all that later. But for now, we're gonna douse this in some olive oil. I don't even bother using a separate bowl to toss because I personally just think that it's a waste of a dish. I, for one, am not a big fan of doing dishes, and I don't have a dishwasher, so I'm always trying to find ways to spare myself. And this is really, I mean, we haven't found a better way and a better combination to season this. And we just use salt, pepper, and garlic powder. We give it a really good seasoning here. You know, it's to taste, but tofu tastes literally like kind of chalky and nothing to me, at least. So it can definitely take the salt, kind of like potatoes. We are not shy with our garlic powder, hence why we have such a big bottle. Just pour that all around there. And I'm just gonna toss it around and make sure that everything, I'm even gonna get my hand in there. Everything's gotta get touched. You don't want it drowning in oil, but you definitely wanna make sure that all the pieces get some oil on them. And once you're sure it's all mixed together well, I just spread it out into a single layer. Gonna pop it in the oven and check on it, give it a little toss in 20 minutes. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes, and this is why I use parchment paper so it will not stick. You can put it directly on the pan or on some foil if you want it to kind of be crisper. You can always add more oil if you want. I like to use as little oil as possible though, just my personal preference. All right, so another 20 minutes in. So this is what it looks like after 40 minutes in the oven. It is still got some moisture in there. It's still squishy a little bit. It's not like a cracker or anything. The whole goal, I guess the best way to put it is it's dehydrating. I'm trying to get all this moisture out of there. I do not want it squishy in the least. So I'm just checking on it. At this point, I don't even really need to toss it. I'm gonna put it in for 20 last minutes and it should be good. An hour of cooking time will get you this. And you can do more than one at a time if you're wondering. But at this point, maybe you can hear the crunchiness. It's pretty crunchy, but it still has some give. And that's gonna be awesome for the next 3 meals that I'm gonna make for the house here. So this is a great texture. It can be eaten as is. It already has pretty decent flavor thanks salt and pepper. It is a little bit dry as is, but the reason for that is because it's going to be cooked, whether it's in a sauce or just sauteed with even a little bit of oil, like in a stir fry or what have you. So as you can see, prepping the tofu this way might take an hour in the oven, but it really is easy, and you can do more than one block at a time, so it's ready to go throughout the week. So you can keep the tofu in the Tupperware like this for up to about a week. It will last, and you can kind of eat out of it and cook with it. Or once it's prepped, you can, ooh, it smells good. You can put it in a Ziploc, put it in the freezer for up to 3 months and take it out when you need it. I use it in a lot of different ways, but I have 3 specific meals that I want to use this block for, and I want to take you along just so you can see how versatile this tofu is and how it can be pretty tasty. This is going to be tonight's dinner. We've got some leftover pasta, can of tomatoes, garlic, homemade veggie broth that I make by freezing vegetables, and then when they're ready, I just boil them until it makes some broth. Easy peasy. Some of this tofu, and I found some of this in the freezer. And we're gonna make dinner out of this with probably a couple of pantry seasonings. First, we're gonna start by prepping these old mushrooms. I'm gonna cut the whole top layer off because the meat's just fine in there. These mushrooms are just gonna fill out the sauce a little more. This could easily work with just a jar of marinara sauce, or if you wanna make creamy sauce, whatever the case is. But tonight I have a can of diced tomatoes, and that's what I'm gonna work with. It's gonna be delicious. This is in my opinion, one of the most important things you can do in the kitchen is keep a stocked pantry. If you can save yourself a little money from the budget at the grocery store one week, use that saved money and buy some pantry items, whether it's rice, pasta, canned goods, seasonings. They all can come in handy, especially when it's a budget week, or maybe you'd rather spend your money on something funner than food, but you don't want to eat like a pauper. A stocked pantry is good for making sure that you can eat good no matter what kind of budget you're on or what's going on, or maybe you just don't even want to go to the store, and that's the bottom line. A stock pantry can help keep you at home, save you some time. So I have already thoroughly wiped these down, and I'm going to take off anything I think is gross. Pretty picky when it comes to mushrooms. Of course, you don't have to use mushrooms. Maybe you have something left over in the fridge you can throw in there with the tofu. What I'm gonna start doing is sauteing these, and then we will actually make the sauce around that. Gonna add some salt. That helps sweat the mushrooms, get some of that liquid out of them. Some pepper. Regrettably, I lost the footage showing the rest of these steps, so I sauteed some garlic with the mushrooms for about 2 minutes. Then I added the tofu, some broth, just till it almost went over the tofu. Then I added the can of tomatoes, and you're seeing the rest. And then we're gonna add some of that frozen spinach right in there too. The spinach will defrost right up in there and mix around as you go. Now you don't want all the liquid to come out, so once you get to your desired consistency, like I think this is about good for me, turn it down to low and let it simmer while I boil the noodles, and then toss it together and it's dinner time. You can see most of the liquid had simmered out of that while the noodles were cooking, but the noodles are done. So I'm just gonna pour some of them right into these bowls and then top it with the sauce. That's a lot of noodles. Yeah. I estimate close estimation that this meal cost about $3 in ingredients, which is good with me. I cannot complain. And we're gonna fill hubbies up there. Here they are. This is so heavy. Good luck to him. I think that any kind of cheese would go good on that, but I happen to have just a little bit of this left, so I think I will go ahead and top it here. Yeah, I am ready to eat. Okay, so for lunch the next day, we made some barbecue coleslaw wraps. And I basically just put a third of that tofu in a pan. I threw in some homemade barbecue sauce, and then I added a little bit of homemade taco seasoning. Just mixed that together and heated it through until the sauce got a little thick and sticky around that tofu. Then I just put the tofu inside some tortillas and topped it with some coleslaw that I had made a couple of days ago. And there you have it. Simple lunch that was super tasty. Now, I admit I've never had a Famous Bowl from KFC, but I've seen the commercials and people that I know have said they're good. So I thought I'd try my hand at making a mock bowl, Famous Bowl. So basically mashing up some potatoes and using the last of that tofu as the quote-unquote chicken part of the meal. So here I am adding a couple sticks of butter to the pan, and then I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of flour as soon as that butter melts. And then I'm going to use a whisk and whisk that up to really incorporate the butter into the flour. What that's going to do is give me the start of a roux. You can always add a little more butter if you want, but I like to keep it a little dry. And I just cook that flour until it browns up for a minute or two to get that raw flavor out of there. You don't want your gravy tasting like raw flour, that's for sure. Once the flour is browned and is cooked for a minute or two, I start adding some broth, and I'm using homemade veggie broth. You can use any kind of broth that you'd like. I'm using 2 cups, starting with very little at a time, and whisking that together to create a paste. We want to make sure no clumps stay in the liquid, or else it's going to end up in the gravy in the end. At this point, all the lumps seem to be gone, so I'm gonna add the broth just a little bit faster than I was earlier until it's fully incorporated. Well, I did not add any salt to my veggie broth, so I went ahead and added a little to the gravy, but you may not have to do that if you're using store-bought broth. Next, it was time to add the tofu, and I just slid it right in. I'm gonna stir it up, and I'm gonna let it simmer for about 10 minutes until the tofu is nice and tender and has soaked up a lot of that flavor, that gravy flavor. So the potatoes have cooked, and I have no milk or anything like that. So I left just a little bit of the starch water in the bottom of the pot there to add as my liquefier. And I added a handful of some homemade Italian seasoning. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder here, just for some extra flavor since there is no milk or anything. And a little bit of salt, of course. Now I'm just going to put a couple tablespoons of butter in the mix just to kind of cream it up a little bit, give it a little bit of a richer flavor. Obviously, you can use real chicken here, but you can also use jackfruit, TVP, or any kind of protein, even lentils if you prefer. You can also bread your tofu or protein and air fry it or even deep fry it if you want it to be more like an authentic famous bowl. And of course, if you have cheese, which I didn't, you should add some of that on top too, just to kick it up a notch. Okay, so if you made it to this point, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope that some of these ideas give you some inspiration to get in the kitchen and do some experimenting yourself. Anyway, thanks again for watching. See you next time.